Hey all you tricksters, welcome back to another great eShop deals video. Today I'm going to have another 10 games that I think you possibly might want to be adding to your Switch collection this week. But make sure that you stick around for after that. I always have a nice little sizzle reel with a whole lot more choices that might tickle your gaming fancy. Alright, so let's start this video. So the first game that I think maybe you should check out this week is Pinstripe. Pinstripe is a very interesting looking sort of platform adventure game where you play as an ex-minister who is making his way through hell to find his daughter. Now this game has always sort of piqued my interest, but I haven't picked it up yet, but I think I am this week. I recently discovered that the developer to this game, Thomas Brush, has an amazing YouTube channel where he talks all about independent game development and his opinions, and sort of he has these videos that sort of dissect what makes great game design. So I really kind of want to take him to task and try his game. It certainly looks very unique, definitely something different from the usual eShop fare. So if you're feeling like me and you want to try out something a little different, something a little bit dark, why don't you check out Pinstripe this week? It is matching its previous low for 80% off for $2.99, and it does not go on sale very often, about once or twice a year. It used to go on sale quite a bit, but for some reason the sales kind of dropped off, so you got about a couple chances a year, it looks like, to pick this up on the cheap. Another game that I'm very excited about its sale is Fury Unleashed. This is a game I have in my collection. Right now, it's on sale. It matches its previous low for 70% off for $5.99. I think this is one of the most underrated roguelikes on the Nintendo Switch. Has an amazing comic book aesthetic, but it's not just the aesthetic. The game literally takes place in comic book panels. Essentially, you are playing as the character of the cartoonist who's basically, he's losing his mind, and you're making your way through his most famous comics as this character to sort of unravel and figure out what's happening to the creator of your world. But it's just a super satisfying gameplay loop. It has all the typical roguelike tropes. You know, you've got all the great upgrades and new kinds of weapons to unlock. Has a super crunchy feel to all of the gunplay. Everything kind of just pops apart with goo and splashes. Also, the enemies, when they burst, they spew ink out everywhere of different colors. That actually works as the currency of the game, or the way you refill your life. So it really does dive headfirst into sort of the comic book motif. So if you're liking what you see and you like a really good, solid roguelike platformer with some great gunplay, I think you're really going to like Fury Unleashed. You should definitely check it out. All right, the next game that I think is highly interesting this week is Severed Steel. Now, this is actually a fairly recent new release, but this is getting its first post-launch sale at its lowest price ever for 25% off for $18.74. Now, I'm going to read the dev description real quick so I don't mess up describing this game. Severed Steel is a single-player FPS featuring a fluid stunt system, destructible voxel environments, loads of bullet time, and a unique one-arm protagonist. It's you, your trigger finger, and a steel-toed boot against a superstructure full of bad guys, chained together wall runs, dives, flips, and slides to take down every last enemy. All right, so I've heard this game very much likened to a lot of other bullet time style games that it takes inspiration from, like Max Payne or other similar style titles. What's really exciting about this one, though, is that the Switch port is apparently phenomenal. It runs almost flawlessly. And for a game that apparently moves so fast and frenetically, that's pretty darn important. So if you like a shooter to feel like a sort of a ballet of death, I think Severed Steel might be worth checking out. Again, it's 25% off, not a huge discount, but at the very least, you could also wishlist it and keep it in mind for later. Our next title is What Lies in the Multiverse. This is getting its lowest sale price ever for 80% off for a measly $2.99. I actually got a chance to try this. I have some gameplay of it on my channel from a few months ago, but it's a really cool little sort of puzzler platformer adventure. It's got some really cool sci-fi themes. I kind of felt like it gave off of a little bit of a vibe of Rick and Morty. You play as a boy, and he is ultimately meeting up with this very eccentric traveler who is able to go between dimensions. So again, it kind of had a strange sort of Rick and Morty feel, and it's also very much a game for adult. It had a lot of adult language, despite the fact that it has a very colorful and cheerful looking world. But of what I really played of it, I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of moving between dimensions in the way that you solve puzzles. So you might have to move from one dimension to another to change where blocks are, or where a new ladder might come down. So it's a very enjoyable platformer puzzle adventure, especially if you like one with a decent amount of story. And boy, from what I played of it, that price for $2.99 is really a steal of a deal for this game. Now, the game you're seeing right now is Golf Club Wasteland. I'm really excited to recommend this game. It is currently 80% off, matching its previous low of only $1.99. I am such a sucker for side-scrolling golf games, but man, this one is a particularly good one. Has an amazing art aesthetic, simple, but I really love the look of it. But not just the art aesthetic, the music is fantastic, and it really brings together this strange world that you're using to play golf in. So the basic premise in this game is that humanity died off and they jump ship onto a sort of space ark, kind of like in the movie WALL-E, if you will. But now in this world, Earth is actually used as a sort of intergalactic golf course that people will visit. And it's really got a weird, moody feel to it. There's actually a radio station that plays music, but also has DJs that sort of talk about what the world is like now. Well, what's really cool is that even though it's just a game about golf, there's actually a little bit of a mystery going on in the back. You'll see different mutated creatures, and occasionally, and I don't want to spoil too much, but you will see remnants of humanity still left on the planet. So if you're looking for a game that's really simple, it is a very simple side-scrolling golf game. There's nothing really crazy going on with the gameplay, but the story and the sort of the weird vibe that's going on underneath just makes it super infectious and really hard to put down. So don't miss out on Golf Club Wasteland, especially only for a measly $1.99. Next game I want to recommend to you is Blossom Tales: The Sleeping King. It is currently 67% off for $4.94. Now you might recognize the name partially because it's been a little bit of a hidden gem, but also because Blossom Tales 2 just came out on the eShop. So if you're curious about what this whole series is about, now would be a really good time to jump in and actually try the first game. This is essentially pretty much a straightforward Legend of Zelda clone. The twist on this is that the character you're playing as is actually being narrated as a grandfather who is basically telling his children a nighttime story. So think like The Princess Bride, except the story he's telling is of Blossom Tales, the Sleeping King. But it's super charming. Again, it is just like Zelda. If you love Zelda games, I think you're going to really enjoy this. Just be forewarned. Unlike a Zelda game, this is pretty short. I think you could get it done in about 5 to 6 hours. So it's definitely not the big meaty adventure you expect from a Zelda clone maybe. But for what you are paying for only $4.94, you're definitely going to get your value during this sale. So the next recommendation for you is Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom. This is currently 67% off for $13.19. This is undoubtedly, especially if you're into 2D games, one of the absolutely most beautiful titles on the Switch. And if you're a fan of Metroidvanias, it's one of the best Metroidvanias on the Switch, easily. Now, if you're not familiar with the Monster Boy games, essentially you play as Monster Boy, but rather than a typical Metroidvania where your character just sort of adds on abilities, rather in Monster Boy, you learn to take on new animal forms, and each of these animal forms that you can switch in and out from, they have different abilities. So that's where your new traversal abilities and ways of getting to places before that you couldn't come into play. But my goodness, again, it's such a gorgeous game. Now, these devs, they remade an old Monster Boy game with their last title, but this was their chance to make a new Monster Boy from the ground up, and they hit it right out of the park. It is amazing. Now, this is a pretty pricey game normally at $40 for an indie game. I mean, that's asking quite a bit. I can say this is one of the few times where I think it just meets that value. I think technically if I had spent $40 on this, I would feel like I had gotten a $40 experience. But man, a good deal on it really sweetens it. So I think for 13 bucks, now is definitely the time to pick it up. This dev usually doesn't drop this to super cheap, so it's a good time to consider picking up Monster Boy. My next recommendation is another fairly recent release. This is Autonauts. It is currently on sale for 40% off for $11.99. Now, this is not a game I own. I'm going to real quickly read the dev description so I don't mess up describing this to you. Fresh from your spaceship, you must harvest stick and stone and begin your settlement building efforts. Create rudimentary crafting items from blueprints and slowly build a number of worker bots to aid in your efforts. Teach and shape their artificial intelligence with a visual programming language, then instruct them to begin the formation of your settlement. Marvel as a planet you've shaped becomes home to a civilization of worker bots happy to do your bidding. So this is one of those games that's all about automation and sort of creating a civilization and programming all these little guys to sort of do your bidding. It's really not my type of game, but I did notice when it came out that it got some really good reviews for the port, and in particular, the user reviews for the Steam version. There's a ton of them, and they're really solid. And from what I've also heard, this is a pretty good game to just sort of dip your toes into the world of automation style games. Apparently, it's a pretty easy and eases you in nicely. Now, for me personally, I still don't think I'm into that style of game, but I think if you've always been kind of curious and you want to try it out, this could be a very lucrative time and a great deal to try out a solid port of a very well-reviewed PC game. My next recommendation to you is one of my favorite hidden gems on the Nintendo Switch. This is Colt Canyon. It's currently 66% off for $5.09. This is a super underrated roguelike on the Switch. Now, it's a real sort of like spaghetti western, but as you can see, it's got sort of like a almost hyper Atari-esque kind of aesthetic to it, but it's got so much character despite the primitive look. The sound effects are amazing. I love when you shoot a guy, the way he just flies back with a loud scream. There's blood splattering everywhere. Again, really, despite the primitive look, it really makes you feel like you're in a gritty western. So like I said, it is a roguelike. It does have permadeath. Be forewarned, it is not like a lot of roguelikes where there's all kinds of upgrade trees and different ways you can switch your loadout. What it does do over the course of the game is that you will unlock new characters, and these different new characters have different stats, and they also will usually have a different starting loadout. So later on in the game, as you've unlocked more characters, you might be able to find characters that just sort of suit your play style better. But the main bulk of this game is going to be more about just getting good and understanding the mechanics to get farther and farther. It is beatable. I'm a decent game player, but I'm not the best, and I was able to finish this game. So I think that if I can do it, you can do it. I really hope I've convinced you to buy this one. Again, like I said, it's one of my favorites. I think it's just a big hidden gem. If you like twin stick shooters, you like the idea of it in a Western, and you like roguelikes, you're going to be just having a match made in heaven with this one. My final recommendation here is Serial Cleaner. It's currently 85% off for $2.24. I'm recommending this because the sequel, I believe, is right around the corner. There's a new game called Serial Cleaners, so I think that's just about a month or so away. So this is a real cheap way to sort of see what this gameplay is all about. The basic premise is you are playing as the mob cleanup man. So you're not killing anyone. Instead, you are going in after the mob has had their way, and you need to dispose of the bodies. You need to clean the blood, and you got to do it all while being very stealthy and making sure that the authorities don't pick up on any of this evidence so that you can make your boss happy. So if you like a little bit of stealth gameplay with a fairly ridiculous premise, I think you're going to really enjoy Serial Cleaner. I definitely think you should check it out before its sequel comes out and see what this sort of gameplay is all about. All right, so don't click off yet. Of course, we've got the sizzle reel, which will have a whole lot more great deal options for you. right, all you tricksters, I hope you saw some deals that you like. Let me know down in the comments below what you're thinking of picking up. And until next time, I hope you have great gaming. Bye-bye.